God, he's not moving!
We need an ambulance right now!
Get me Brando, my dog.
They called him Grim on the road because death followed wherever he rode. But that night, death didn't follow. It waited. The crash came fast. A blur of headlights, rain, and steel. 1 second, he was tearing down the interstate at 90. The next, his Harley was folding beneath him, sparks scattering like dying stars. By the time they pulled him from the wreck, his pulse was fading, his leathers soaked in blood and rainwater. At the hospital, the doctors whispered the truth. He won't make it to morning. But when they asked for his final words, his voice cracked, hoarse, but steady, cut through the chaos. Bring Brando. Not his club brothers. Not a priest. Not family. Just his dog. The nurses froze. The surgeon frowned. But what happened next would turn that sterile operating room into a battlefield of miracles. One where a biker's final wish and a dog's impossible instinct would expose a truth no one saw coming. Because sometimes, the line between life and death isn't drawn by doctors. It's guarded by loyalty. Before we get into this, tell me, where are you watching this from? Comment your city below. Hit that subscribe button and like the video. Now let's rewind to how this moment started. Of course, they called him Rider Grim Maddox, and on the open road, that name carried weight. Grim wasn't born mean. Life just kept throwing punches until he learned how to hit back. He rode with the outlaws, a man of few words and a throttle hand that spoke for him. To most, he was danger wrapped in denim. To one creature in the whole world, he was home. That creature's name was Brando, a silver and black pit mix with a heart too loyal for this world. Every mile Grim rode, Brando rode beside him, ears flapping in the wind, eyes always on the horizon. And when people asked why a man like Grim bothered with a dog, he'd grin and say, because he never lies, and he don't leave when it gets ugly. But that night on Route 16, everything got ugly. The storm came without warning. Rain hammered asphalt. Headlights smeared into silver streaks. Grim leaned into the curve, tires hissing. Then a flash of tan in the dark. He jerked the bars. Tires lost grip. Metal screamed against pavement. The world turned sideways. Sparks, glass, silence. When the paramedics found him, his bike lay twisted like a broken rib. He was breathing, barely. One of them muttered, "This one's not gonna make it." But Grim's fingers twitched, reaching for something that wasn't there, his dog's collar. They rushed him through double doors, wheels rattling, lights stabbing white overhead. Nurses shouted vitals, gloves snapped, monitors screamed. His leather cut was soaked in blood and rainwater, the skull emblem half torn. Dr. Reyes barked orders. "We've got internal bleeding, possible punctured lung." Move. Through it all, Grim's lips moved, barely sound. Nurse Danica leaned closer. "Sir, can you hear me?" "Stay awake." He breathed one word, rough as gravel. "Brando." She frowned. "Is that your brother?" He coughed, forcing the word out again. "My dog." The team exchanged glances. They'd heard strange things in trauma, confessions, prayers, names of long-dead lovers, but a dying man asking for his dog? That was new. "Focus on breathing," Danica said, pressing down on his ribs. But Grim's hand caught her wrist. Weak, trembling, but firm. "Please. Bring." Brando, his eyes ice gray, full of exhaustion and defiance, held hers until she nodded. "I'll see what I can do," she whispered, not knowing she just promised the impossible. Rain came down in sheets when a matte black pickup fishtailed into the hospital lot. Behind the wheel was Diesel, Grim's second in command. In the passenger seat, Brando pawed the window, whining, muscles coiled like springs. Diesel slammed the door and faced the guard at the entrance. "Where's Rider Maddox?" "They brought him in. Family only," the guard said. Diesel's jaw tightened. "We are his family." Brando barked once, sharp and deep, like thunder splitting the night. The guard flinched. Inside, Danica stood at the nurse's station, the sound of that bark echoing through the glass doors. Something in her chest stirred. Instinct maybe, or guilt. She picked up the phone. "Security? Let the dog in. Just for a minute." The trauma team wheeled Grim towards surgery. Lines, clamps, tubing, oxygen. Too many moving parts. Danica's hands worked from memory, the rhythm of survival. She was tired. 17 hours on shift. Her body moved faster than her thoughts. Vitals dropping, a tech shouted. Start the transfusion. She nodded, moving to the tray, but something slipped through the cracks, one crucial step, one misconnection. The monitors flickered red. We're losing him, the surgeon barked. The line between life and death thinned to a whisper. And that's when the hallway exploded with sound. The ER doors burst open. A streak of fur and fury shot through the corridor. Brando, wet, wild, unstoppable, tore past security like a bullet made of muscle and memory. His paws slipped on tile, claws scraping. Nurses screamed. A tray crashed to the floor. Danica turned just as the operating doors slammed open. Brando barreled straight toward the table. Get that dog out of here, the surgeon yelled. But Brando didn't attack. He went for Danica, grabbing her scrub sleeve, tugging, growling low and urgent. She stumbled back, eyes darting to the tray, and froze. The clamp. The missing clamp. Her stomach dropped. Oh my God, wait. She lunged, corrected it, tightened the seal. Blood flow stabilized. Heart rhythm returned. The flat line turned to a steady beep. Silence fell like rain after thunder. The surgeon looked at her, then at the dog, who stood panting, watching the man on the table as if waiting for permission to rest. Who brought that dog in here? He muttered. Danica swallowed. He brought himself. The room was dim, the storm quiet now. Grim lay under a blanket, machines softly beeping beside him. Brando curled on the floor, head on his paws, eyes half closed but alert. Every so often, his ears twitched toward the sound of Grim's breathing. Danica stood in the doorway, arms folded. Miles, the head nurse, walked up beside her. You know this violates every rule we have, he said. She nodded slowly. Then tonight the rules can wait. Miles studied the man and his dog, then sighed. Guess you can't argue with results. Outside, lightning flashed one last time over the wet asphalt where the wreck had been cleaned away. Inside, two hearts beat in rhythm, one human, one hound, bound by something stronger than medicine. And while the doctors called it a miracle, Danica knew better. It wasn't science. It was loyalty. And loyalty, that night, had rewritten death's schedule. The storm eased to a whisper, but inside the hospital, the air still felt heavy. Every nurse and county general had heard by now. A dog broke into the oar and saved a biker's life. Some called it luck. Others called it impossible. But for Danica Holt, it had been something holy, something that shook her hands long after the beeping stopped. She sat in the hallway outside ICU room 12, scrubs streaked with blood and fur, heartbeats still echoing in her ears. Through the small glass window, she could see him, the man they called Grim, motionless, face pale against the pillow. At the foot of the bed, the dog lay like a sentry, chest rising slow, eyes open. Every few minutes his tail gave a single thump, just to remind the world he was watching. You should have seen it, she murmured when the head nurse passed. He pulled my sleeve like he was trying to talk. Miles just shook his head. You look like you've seen a ghost. She smiled faintly. Maybe I did. By dawn, the hall outside Grim's room filled with whispers. Doctors stopped mid-round to glance in. An orderly set down his tray, just to stare at the sleeping dog. Someone had brought in an old blanket and a bowl of water, and Brando hadn't moved except to drink. At 7 a.m., Diesel showed up. Black hoodie, leather vest, eyes red from no sleep. Security hesitated at the door until Danica nodded him through. He froze when he saw the scene, grim alive, breathing, color creeping back into his face. Brando lifted his head and wagged once. No way, Diesel whispered. Brother, you pulled through. He crouched and scratched behind the dog's ear. You did good, soldier. The dog leaned into his hand with a sigh. Diesel's voice caught a little rough with relief. He turned to Danica. They said he wasn't going to make it. He almost didn't, she replied. If that dog hadn't come in when he did. She stopped, realizing how unreal it still sounded. Diesel studied her face. You believe it, don't you? Danica nodded. I don't just believe it. I saw it. Later that morning, an administrator called her in. They wanted statements. Why a non-service animal had entered restricted space, who authorized it, what risk protocols were broken. Danica told the truth. He saved the patient's life. They frowned, flipping through forms. We need a medical explanation. She stared at them, tired and calm. Sometimes medicine isn't the only thing keeping someone alive. When she left the office, she half expected to be suspended. Instead, the hospital director walked past her and said quietly, "The board decided to overlook the incident. Next time, they'll maybe chain the doors." She smiled, small and defiant. "Next time, I'll just listen sooner." By evening, Grim stirred. The sedatives had worn thin. His eyes fluttered open, finding the ceiling first, then the shadow beside him. Brando's tail tapped the floor, once, twice, and that sound pulled Grim fully back into the world. "You again," he croaked. Danica was there instantly. "Don't move too fast. You've got stitches everywhere." He looked around, confused. "How long?" "You've been out almost a day." He swallowed, throat dry. "The crash. You hit the guardrail. Lost a lot of blood." She hesitated. "You almost didn't make it." Grim's gaze fell on the dog. "Almost." Brando climbed onto the edge of the bed, careful and gentle, muzzle pressing against his chest. The monitor picked up the rhythm of Grim's laugh, rough but alive. Danica hesitated before speaking. "I need you to know something. When we brought you in, I missed a step. The doggy..." Grim lifted a hand. "Doesn't matter how. Just that it happened." She blinked. "You're not angry. Lady, I've done worse mistakes at 90 miles an hour. You fixed yours before it killed me." He scratched Brando's neck. "Guess he's still my better half." By nightfall, the hospital lobby filled with rumble. Engines, deep and synchronized, rolled like thunder across the parking lot. Patients pressed faces to windows. Nurses craned their necks. The Outlaws MC had arrived. 20 bikes in a clean line, chrome shining under the streetlights. Diesel stood at the front, arms crossed, expression proud. They didn't storm the hospital. They waited, quiet, respectful. For men who lived loud, silence was their prayer. When security finally let them up one at a time, the brothers filed into Grim's room, boots heavy on tile, eyes shining. They didn't bring flowers. They brought a folded leather patch. Diesel laid it on the table beside the bed. Black leather, silver thread, a paw print stitched dead center. Above it, 2 words, "Brother's Keeper." "We took a vote," Diesel said. "Brando's part of the club now." Grim looked from the patch to the dog, then back to Diesel. His voice broke just enough to show the man beneath the legend. "He's been part of it longer than me." When the brothers left, Danica turned off the main light, leaving only the soft glow of monitors. Grim's breathing slowed. Brando stretched out by his side again. She lingered in the doorway, watching them. Something about that scene, man, dog, steady heartbeat, made her chest ache. "You know," she said softly, "I think he knew before any of us did." Grim's eyes stayed on the ceiling. "He always does." Outside, rain started again, gentler now, like a benediction. Inside, Danica sat down in a chair beside the bed. For the first time in months, she didn't feel the crushing weight of exhaustion. Just quiet gratitude that tonight, a stranger still breathed because a dog refused to wait outside. Morning light leaked through the blinds, soft and gold after 2 days of rain. Inside ICU room 12, everything smelled of antiseptic and hope. The monitors hummed steady. The only heartbeat that mattered had learned its rhythm again. Ryder Grim, Maddox, opened his eyes to a world that no longer roared. No engines. No rain. Only a dog slow breathing at the foot of his bed. Brando lifted his head, ears twitching. The second their eyes met, the dog gave a low, questioning whine. Grim smiled, a crooked, painful thing, but it reached all the way to his eyes. "Still here, huh?" he whispered. "Couldn't let me rest in peace." Brando answered by dropping his muzzle into Grim's palm. The weight of that touch was better medicine than anything running through the floor. Nurse Danica stepped in with a chart pressed to her chest. She'd changed out of the blood-stained scrubs. Her hair was pulled back neat, but her eyes were softer now, different. "Welcome back, highway legend," she said, voice light. Grim chuckled, then winced. "Legend? Last thing I remember, I was roadkill." "You were," she said simply. "Then your dog rewrote the ending." He stared at her for a moment. Everyone keeps saying that. What really happened? Danica glanced toward Brando. You started bleeding out. I missed a clamp. She hesitated, still half shocked at the memory. He came through those doors, grabbed my sleeve, and wouldn't let go until I saw it. If he hadn't, you'd be gone. Grim absorbed that in silence. Guess loyalty ain't just a club rule, he murmured. Danica folded her arms. I've replayed that night 100 times, she said. I could have killed you. Could have, Grim replied, but didn't. World runs on what did happen, not what almost did. His calm disarmed her. You're really that forgiving? I've buried brothers for less and forgiven him anyway. We all mess up. You owned it. That's rare. She blinked, fighting sudden tears. You sound like a preacher for someone named Grim. You spend enough nights riding beside death. You learn to talk his language. They shared a quiet laugh, awkward but healing. Outside the room, the hospital buzzed. Phones rang, reporters hovered by reception, and somewhere down the corridor a janitor muttered, That's the miracle biker. By noon, Grim's story had become a headline. Dog interrupts surgery, saves owner's life. TV vans idled outside. Someone sent flowers addressed to Brando Maddox. Miles, the head nurse, knocked before entering. Media wants an interview. Grim groaned. Tell him the dog doesn't do press. Miles smirked. They're not asking the dog, they're asking you. Then tell him I don't either. But later, when a small girl from the pediatric ward peeked around the door, clutching a toy motorcycle, Grim couldn't keep the scowl. You the reporter? He asked. She shook her head, eyes wide. My mom says your dog's a hero. He grinned. Your mom's right. Brando licked her fingers through the rail. The girl giggled, and for the first time in years, Grim felt something inside him loosen. That evening, the outlaws came back, boots echoing, voices low. Diesel carried a small speaker. Soft blues filled the sterile room. Thought you'd miss the sound of engines, he said. They traded stories. The crash, the chase, the dog who stormed an operating room like he owned it. When laughter filled the space, the monitors seemed to sync with it, steady, strong, alive. Diesel leaned in, serious again. Brother, we thought we lost you. Club's planning a run when you're healed, a ride for the folks who saved you. Grim glanced at Danica, who hovered near the door. Then make sure she and the mutt ride up front. Danica flushed. I don't even own a helmet. You got a heart. That'll do. Later, after everyone left, Grim sat propped against the pillows. Rain whispered against the window. Brando snored softly on the floor. He reached for the patch Diesel had left the night before. Black leather, silver paw print, brother's keeper stitched above. His thumb traced the stitching, rough against smooth. You earned it, boy, he said. Guess I gotta start acting like I deserve you. Danica passed by in the hall, heard him talking, and paused unseen at the doorway. There was a reverence in his tone she hadn't heard from any man inside these walls. A prayer without a name. She smiled to herself and walked on. Day stretched. Physical therapy began, painful, slow, humiliating at times. Each morning, Brando trotted beside the walker, matching Grim's pace step for step. Nurses called it adorable. Grim called it accountability. By the 5th day, he managed a full lap around the ward. Patients clapped, staff filmed quietly. He stopped near the nurse's station, breathless but grinning. Guess death'll have to wait a while longer. Miles clapped his shoulder. With that dog around? Death's on probation. Before discharge, the hospital director presented Danica with a commendation. She accepted, but when reporters asked about the event, she only said, Credit belongs to the one who can't talk. That night, she slipped a copy of the commendation under Grim's coffee cup. Across the bottom, she'd written in pen, Thanks for believing me. Grim looked up at her. Believing in miracles is part of the job, he said. You're not a doctor. No, he smiled. Just someone who's finally learning how to live. The news didn't break like thunder. It spread like dawn, quiet at first, then everywhere at once. By the second morning, reporters camped outside County General's main entrance. Camera crews crowded the sidewalk. Vans idled by the loading dock. One nurse joked that the ER hadn't seen this much attention since the governor's heart scare. At the center of it all, a man who barely remembered dying and a dog who wouldn't leave his side. Danica found the first article by accident. She'd open her phone during break, scrolling half awake, when the words caught her eye. Dog interrupts surgery, saves biker's life. The photo beneath it wasn't from the hospital. It was an old picture from Grimm's Club days, a rough smile, sunglasses, leather jacket. The caption read, "Rider Grim Maddox of the Outlaws MC survives fatal crash thanks to his loyal dog, Brando." She nearly dropped the phone. Within hours, the story appeared on 3 local feeds, then national wire. By afternoon, the hospital switchboard was jammed with calls. Journalists, animal advocates, biker magazines. Miles groaned when he saw the chaos. "Hope he likes attention," he muttered. Danica smiled. He's about to get more of it than he's had in his life. Outside, chrome glinted in the sun. The Outlaws MC had returned, not 20 this time, but 50 strong. Engines idled in unison, deep and reverent. People who'd once crossed the street to avoid them now stood at the fence taking pictures. A woman whispered to her son, "See? Not all bikers are bad people." The boy nodded, clutching a toy Harley. Inside, Grim watched the scene on the TV above his bed. Every channel showed his face, the crash footage, the reunion with Brando. Reporters used words like miracle, loyalty, second chance. Grim squinted at the screen. "They make it sound prettier than it was." Diesel chuckled from the chair by the window. "They always do. Don't fight it. You're famous now, brother. I don't want fame. Ain't about what you want." Sometimes stories ride their own road. Grim thought about that as drifting toward Brando. Guess me and him just started a ride we didn't plan. That evening, Danica walked Grim down the hall for his first public appearance. The hospital wanted a statement, something short and heartfelt for the cameras. He hated the idea, but she promised he could keep it honest. Reporters lined the corridor, microphones raised, flashes snapping. Brando padded beside him, head high, tail calm. When they reached the mic stand, the chatter quieted. Grim took a breath, adjusting the sling on his shoulder. "They say I cheated death," he began, voice rough but steady. "Truth is, I didn't cheat nothing. I just had someone who refused to let me go." He placed a hand on Brando's head. "I'm not a saint. I've done things I ain't proud of. But this dog, he don't care who I was. He just knows who I am." The room stayed silent except for camera clicks. So, if this story makes you feel something good, remember the people or the dogs who stayed when you didn't deserve it. That's the miracle part. He gave a small nod and turned away. The crowd erupted in applause. Danica caught his arm. Grim smiled faintly. "I just told the truth." 2 days later, bikers from across state lines began riding in clubs that had once been rivals, now shaking hands in parking lots. They brought food, donations, even get-well letters for Brando. Diesel stood outside watching it unfold. "Never thought I'd see a truce because of a dog," he said. Miles passed by laughing. Miracles come in fur coats, apparently. For once, County General didn't feel like a war zone. It felt like church. That night, Danica sat in her car long after her shift ended, phone buzzing with messages. Her mother had seen the story on TV. "You did a wonderful thing," the message read. "Your father would be proud." She stared at it, tears welling. For the first time since nursing school, she believed it. Inside the hospital, she passed by Grim's door on her way out. He was asleep, Brando curled against his leg. On the nightstand sat a folded paper, today's newspaper. Someone had circled the headline and written in pen, "Sometimes faith wears a collar." On the 4th night, a woman appeared at the nurse's station. Leather jacket, dark glasses, a face lined by old worry. "I'm looking for Rider Maddox," she said. "Tell him Lucy stopped running." When Danica relayed the message, Grim went still. Lucy had been part of his old life, back when loyalty had meant violence, not devotion. She stepped into the room, removing her glasses. "Heard you found yourself an angel," she said. Grim chuckled softly. "More like a guardian devil." Lucy smiled, tears threatening. "Either way, looks like he did what I couldn't, kept you alive." He nodded. "Guess I needed both of you at different times." She kissed his forehead and left without another word. Danica watched from the hall, realizing that sometimes saving a life heals more than one soul at a time. By the weekend, the noise began to fade. The reporters left, the cameras moved on. But the story kept traveling, shared, reposted, retold. Bikers across America started fundraising for animal shelters. ER nurses shared the clip in training sessions. People said it reminded them that courage didn't always come with a badge. In a quiet moment, Grim scrolled through the news feed on Diesel's phone. Comment after comment read the same. Made me cry. Reminded me of my dog. Hope he knows he's a hero. He handed the phone back. Hero's a heavy word. Diesel smirked. Good thing you got a strong dog to carry it. That night, for the first time since the crash, Grim asked to have the monitors unplugged. I just want silence, he told Danica. She obliged, standing near the door as he lay back. Outside, rain began again, soft and rhythmic. Brando lifted his head, huffed once, then rested it on Grim's chest. The rise and fall of their breathing matched, two survivors in sync. Danica turned off the light. The last thing she heard before leaving was Grim's voice, quiet, grateful. Still here, boy. Still here. The day Grim walked again, the hospital shook. Not from thunder this time, but from engines. The Outlaws MC had come in full force. Chrome, steel, black leather gleaming under sunlight. They didn't wait inside the parking lot. They took over the whole block. Every horn that passed slowed down. Every stranger stopped to film. Diesel stood front and center, boots planted, arms crossed. He grinned when he saw Grim at the door, one arm still in a sling, stitches running down his ribs. There he is. The man who scared death into taking a vacation. Grim shook his head. You exaggerate worse than a preacher. Not Diesel said. Preachers talk about miracles. We ride one. Behind him, the club brothers started their bikes in unison. The sound rolled through the streets like an earthquake made of thunder and loyalty. They called it a run of thanks. No speeches. No sponsors. Just a ride to honor the people who'd saved one of their own, and the dog who refused to let him die. Grim stepped outside slowly, hospital gown replaced with his patched leather vest. The sunlight felt foreign against his skin. The smell of fuel, familiar and holy. Danica stood near the entrance, clutching a clipboard, eyes wide at the sight of so many bikers. Diesel waved her over. You too, Nurse Miracle. You're part of this. I'm on shift, she began. Not anymore, Miles said, smiling behind her. I covered it. Go. Danica laughed, half nervous, half thrilled, and followed them out. At the center of the group, Diesel opened a small box. Inside lay the leather patch they'd made days before. Black base, silver paw print, Brother's Keeper stitched across the top. Diesel looked at Grim, then at the crowd. Ain't every day a dog earns a cut. But Brando ain't every dog. He knelt, attached the patch to Brando's harness. The crowd cheered, engines revving. Someone shouted, to the brother who don't ride but leads the way. Grim laughed for the first time in weeks, loud, rough, alive. When the engines roared to life, the street trembled. Grim climbed onto his Harley, pain still biting through his side, but pride keeping him steady. Brando jumped into the sidecar like he'd been born there. Danica stood beside Miles, covering her ears from the noise. How far are they going? She asked. Till the gas or the gratitude runs out, Miles replied. And with that, the Outlaws rolled out, a river of chrome disappearing into the horizon. For Grim, the road had always been escape. But today, it felt like redemption. The wind hit his face, cold and clean. Every bump in the asphalt echoed through his ribs, a reminder that he was still alive to feel it. Brando barked once, head high, tongue out. Diesel pulled up beside him, shouting over the roar. How's the view from the afterlife? Grim smirked. Better company than I expected. They rode for hours, through fields, over bridges, past towns where people waved and held up signs. Hero dog. Loyalty still lives. For men who'd spent years feared and misunderstood, that kind of welcome hit hard. One brother wiped his eyes behind tinted shades. Never thought the world would clap for us, Grim. Maybe they ain't clap pin for us, Grim said. Maybe they're clap pin for what we could still be. By sunset, they circled back to the hospital courtyard. Reporters waited again, cameras ready. This time Grim didn't hide from them. He parked, helped Brando out of the sidecar, and faced the crowd. The dog's new patch caught the light, shining silver. Danica blinked back tears. Grim bent, resting a hand on Brando's head. If you're lucky enough to have something or someone that loves you this much, don't wait for an accident to tell him, you know. The crowd clapped. Cameras flashed. Later that night, after the noise faded, Grim sat in his hospital bed again. Same room, different man. The doctor had warned him about taking it slow, but he felt stronger than he had in years. Danica walked in holding 2 styrofoam cups. Brought coffee. Figured you'd earn something stronger, but caffeine's the best I can do. You did enough, Grim said. More than you know. She leaned against the wall, studying him. You don't seem like the same man who came in here. He looked down at the scars on his hands. I ain't. That crash broke more than bone. It broke the silence I've been living in. Now I'm trying to fill it with better noise. She smiled softly. Like engines. Like forgiveness. When Danica left that night, she found something taped to the nurse's station. A worn leather tag on a chain. She recognized it immediately, the one that had fallen from Grim's hand during intake. On the back, fresh words were scratched in with a pocket knife. To Danica for hearing what a dying man couldn't say. She closed her fist around it, eyes wet. Miles walked by and said quietly, "Seems like you've made some new family." She nodded. The loud kind. Back at the Outlaws Clubhouse, Diesel stood on a chair holding a beer high. The brothers crowded around, Brando sitting front and center with a rawhide bone in his mouth. To Grim, Diesel said, "For proving even death needs an appointment." To Brando, another shouted, "For biting the nurse who forgot the clamp." Laughter rolled through the room. "And to the road," Diesel finished, "for always giving us one more mile to make things right." Bottles clanked. Brando barked once, loud, commanding, perfect. When the laughter died, Grim sat outside alone beneath the stars, Brando at his feet. The patch on the dog's harness caught the moonlight brother's keeper. Grim exhaled smoke, long and slow. "We're lucky, boy. Not many men get to come back from the edge." Brando looked up, tail flicking. "Yeah," Grim said, smiling. "I know. You were the one who pulled me back." When the cameras left and the engines faded, silence finally returned to County General. For most people, that silence meant peace. For Danica Holt, it meant replay. She could still hear the flatline in her sleep, the dog snarl, her own voice shouting, "Wait." Even now, weeks later, she would wake to phantom alarms, heart pounding like she was still inside that operating room. The hospital moved on quickly. Viral stories always burn fast. New patients, new emergencies. But for Danica, the night Grim almost died never really ended. She sat alone in the staff lounge long after midnight, hands wrapped around a mug gone cold. Outside the window, the parking lot shimmered with rain. Every light flicker reminded her of the year lamps. Every metallic clang in the hallway sounded like a dropped clamp. She hated how memory could trap a person in a loop. Miles, the head nurse, found her there. He carried 2 paper cups of fresh coffee. "You still punishing yourself?" he asked gently. She managed a tired smile. "Just reviewing mistakes." "You saved him, Danica." "No," she whispered. "Brando saved him. I'm just the nurse who almost didn't." Miles sat across from her. "Listen, we all slip. What matters is whether we learn or hide. You stayed. You faced it. That's the part they don't teach in nursing school." She looked up. "Then why do I still feel like I don't deserve the uniform?" "Because you care enough to ask that question," he said, and left her to the quiet. 2 days later, an envelope arrived in her mailbox at work. No return address. Just her name written in block letters that looked carved, not written. Inside was a folded piece of notebook paper. Danica. Heard her losing sleep over that night. Stop. Mistakes happen. What matters is how you handle them. You listened when it counted. That's more than most folks ever do. I'm breathing because you did. Keep doing what you're doing. R. Maddox. At the bottom, a paw print stamped in ink, clearly Brando's. She laughed, then cried right into her lunch break. Weeks later, the hospital asked her to speak at a safety seminar, how to manage pressure in the emergency room. She almost refused. Public speaking wasn't her thing. But she remembered Grimm's words. You owned it. That's rare. Standing on the stage in front of 100 colleagues, she took a deep breath. The microphone smelled faintly of disinfectant. You've heard the viral version, she began. The miracle dog, the biker who lived. Here's the other version, part where a tired nurse missed a clamp and almost cost a man his life. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. She didn't flinch. I'm telling you this because shame grows in silence. That night taught me that listening, really listening, can save more than a patient. It can save you. When she finished, the room was quiet for a long time. Then someone in the back stood and clapped. Then another. Then the whole room. Afterward, a young intern approached her, eyes bright. "Thank you," he said. "I messed up last week. I was going to quit. Maybe I'll stay." She smiled. Then the story did its job. That weekend, a rumble rolled up the hospital driveway. 3 bikes, chrome, shining in the sun. Danica froze at the reception desk as the riders dismounted. Diesel led the way, carrying a small box. Brando trotted beside him, tail wagging politely as if he belonged on hospital floors now. "Heard Nurse Miracle was working today," Diesel said. "We brought a little something." He opened the box. Inside lay a miniature leather vest, black with white stitching that read Guardian Angel, Honorary Outlaws. Danica laughed through a tear. "You didn't have to." "Yeah, we did," Diesel said. "You saved our brother." And Brando says hospitals need better snacks. The dog barked once, perfectly on cue. Everyone in the lobby applauded. That night, Danica drove home with a tiny vest folded on her passenger seat. She rolled down the window, letting warm air fill the car. For the first time in months, she didn't see flashing monitors behind her eyes. She saw open road. When she reached her apartment, she pinned the vest above her desk where her nursing certificate hung. 2 symbols side by side, one earned through study, the other through survival. She stared at them, thinking of the strange way life knits wounds together. A biker, a dog, a mistake, a miracle. Each piece had its own scar, and somehow those scars made a story worth telling. She whispered, "Thanks, Brando. Guess you saved more than one of us." Just before bed, her phone buzzed. A photo message. It was Grim, back on his Harley, Brando in the sidecar, both framed by orange sunset. Text below. "Riding again. Thought you'd want proof we're still breathing. G and B." Danica grinned. "Still breathing," she repeated, setting the phone on her nightstand. For the first time since that night, she slept straight through till morning. Sure thing, Chica. They discharged Ryder Grim Maddox on a Wednesday morning. No fanfare this time, just paperwork, bruises, and a sky too blue to be real. The doctor handed him a clipboard and shook his head. "You're a lucky man," Grim signed, smirking. "No, Doc. Just stubborn." The nurse wheeled him to the exit, even though he swore he could walk. Half the staff lined the hallway anyway. Quiet smiles, phones raised, small waves. Danica was among them, arms crossed, trying not to cry. Brando trotted proudly beside the wheelchair, his little brother's keeper patch gleaming under the fluorescent lights. When the automatic doors opened, sunlight poured in like forgiveness. And there it was, an ocean of chrome. The Outlaws MC filled the parking lot. Bikes polished. Flags flapping. Engines rumbling like 100 beating hearts. Diesel stood at the front, a helmet in one hand and a grin in the other. "Took you long enough, brother." Grim grunted. "Hospital food was too good to leave." "You lie worse than a preacher," Diesel said, laughing. Danica pushed the chair closer. "Looks like your ride's waiting." "Looks like my whole damn life's waiting," Grim replied. He rose slowly, one hand braced on the armrest, the other steadying himself on Brando's harness. Pain flickered through his ribs, but he ignored it. A man doesn't limp in front of his brothers. Diesel handed him the helmet, flat black, the word resurrected scrawled in white paint across the side. "Made it myself," he said. "Figured it fits." Grim chuckled. "Little dramatic, but I'll take it." Danica stepped forward. "Before you go," she held out a small envelope. "A copy of your discharge summary. And something else." Inside was a photo, taken the morning after the miracle. Grim asleep, Brando curled against his chest, the monitors glowing green in the dark. Across the back, she'd written, "Sometimes loyalty is the best medicine." Grim stared at it, quiet for a moment. "You sure you're not a poet, Nurse Holt?" "Only on night shift," she said. They shared a look, half gratitude, half goodbye. Then Grim bent, pressed a rough kiss to her forehead. "You did good, document." "I'm not a doctor." "You are to me." Brando barked once like he agreed. When Grim swung a leg over his Harley, the crowd roared. Diesel started his engine first. The others followed, one by one, a chain of thunder that shook the glass doors. Brando hopped into the sidecar, nails clicking, tongue out, ready. Grim twisted the key, the familiar rumble settling into his bones like a heartbeat remembered. He glanced back once. Danica standing at the curb, Miles beside her, both waving. He lifted 2 fingers in salute. Then he eased the throttle. The pack moved as one, tires gripping asphalt, engines harmonizing. The hospital shrank in the mirrors until it was just another building on the edge of memory. For the first time since the crash, Grim didn't feel trapped between what he was and what he'd lost. He just felt alive. The convoy cut through the city, sunlight flashing off chrome. People on sidewalks stopped to stare. Some recognized them from the news and clapped. Others just smiled because it's hard not to when you see Joy riding shotgun. Grim and Diesel took the lead. They passed the crash site on Route 16, the place where steel and asphalt had once tried to write his ending. The guardrail was repaired now, but the black skid mark still faintly goes to the curve. Grim slowed, heart heavy and grateful all at once. He pulled over to the shoulder, motioning the others to keep going. Diesel stayed back, idling beside him. "You okay?" Grim nodded. "Yeah, just paying respects." He looked down at Brando. The dog stood in the sidecar, nose lifted toward the wind. "This is where we stopped the first time," Grim murmured. "Guess we start again from here." He revved the engine softly, one long, low growl that felt like closure. They rode until hunger beat the adrenaline. A roadside diner came into view, neon sign flickering, open 24 hours. Inside, they took up a whole corner booth. The waitress recognized Grim instantly. "You're the miracle biker." "Nah," Grim said, smiling. "He's the miracle. I'm just the lucky one." She brought extra bacon for Brando. The dog ate like royalty, while the brothers laughed and clinked mugs of coffee instead of beer. For a club known for brawls and breakneck rides, the laughter sounded different that day. Clean easy. Diesel leaned across the table. "So what now, Grim? You gonna hang up the cut or keep riding?" Grim looked out the window at the horizon stretching endless and gold. "I ain't done riding, but maybe it's time to ride for something better." "Like what?" "Like proving second chances don't waste themselves." By dusk they reached the clubhouse, half garage, half sanctuary. The sun painted the bikes in amber light. The brothers parked, engines cooling, laughter spilling into twilight. Grim dismounted carefully, ribs aching but soul full. Brando jumped out, trotting circles around the bikes before collapsing in the grass. Diesel tossed him a ball. "He's got more energy than the rest of us put together." "Yeah," Grim said. "That's why he's still my heartbeat on 4 legs." He leaned against the bike, cigarette unlit between his fingers, watching the sky fade from orange to purple. For the first time, home didn't mean chaos. It meant this: a road survived, a brotherhood redefined, a quiet dog snoring at his feet. Later, after the others turned in, Grim sat alone on the steps with Brando beside him. The patch on the dog's harness caught the porch light, brother's keeper. Grim lit the cigarette, inhaled, exhaled slow. "You did good, boy. Better than me most days." Brando huffed, head nudging his arm. Yeah, Grim said softly. "Guess we both got saved that night." The highway in the distance hummed like a lullaby. He smiled. Still here. Still riding. The highway was quiet that morning. No roaring engines, no taillights cutting the dawn. Just one man, one dog, and a stretch of road that remembered them both. Rider Grim Maddox hadn't ridden alone since the crash. But today wasn't a ride for the club. It wasn't about noise or show. It was a promise he made to himself the night Brando saved him. Come back when you're whole. And now for the first time in months, he finally was. Mist rolled low across Route 16, the same road where death once tried to write his ending. The same guardrail. The same faint scars of rubber. Different man. Grim rode slow, throttle steady, the hum of the engine softer than a heartbeat. Brando sat in the sidecar, muzzle in the wind, eyes half closed like he knew this road by memory. They weren't running from anything this time. They were returning. The air smelled of wet pine and redemption. When they reached the bend that had almost killed him, Grim pulled over. He killed the engine. Silence settled heavy but not cruel. He dismounted, boots crunching gravel, and walked to the rail. A small dent still marked the spot. Someone, maybe one of the outlaws, had painted the metal black again. At the base of the post, a cluster of wildflowers grew through the cracks. "Well, I'll be damned," he whispered. "Even the ground heals." Brando patted over, sniffed the flowers, then sat beside him, tail sweeping dust. Grim rested a hand on the dog's head. "You remember this place, huh?" The night everything went dark. The dog tilted his head like he understood every word. "You pull me back, boy. You made me remember what matters. That's something I ain't forgetting." He leaned against the rail, watching sunlight creep over the horizon. For the first time, he didn't see the crash. He saw continuance. The wind shifted, carrying the faint rumble of distant engines. Grim smiled. "Brothers," he said under his breath. "Even when you rode alone, the road always echoed back their sound." He closed his eyes, hearing Danica's voice in memory. "You don't seem like the same man who came in here." He wasn't. The man who'd ridden into that storm was hollow, reckless, half alive. The one standing here now carried scars, sure, but also purpose. "Funny thing about death," he said quietly. "It makes life louder." Brando barked once, sharp and clear. Grim grinned. "Yeah, couldn't have said it better." As he stood there, a rusted pickup slowed to a stop on the opposite shoulder. A man climbed out, older, thin, wearing a worn veteran's MC jacket. "You Maddox," he called. Grim nodded warily. "Who's a skin?" The man smiled. "Name's Hawk. Saw your story online. Lost my dog last year. Been riding out here trying to figure what to do next." He looked at Brando. "Didn't think I'd find my answer on this road." Grim studied him, then walked over and extended a hand. "You found it, brother. It's to keep riding. That's all there is." They shook, silent understanding between them. Hawk patted Brando's head. "He's the real legend, huh?" "Always was," Grim said. The man climbed back into his truck, waved once, and drove off. The encounter lasted less than 2 minutes, but something about it settled deep in Grim's chest. Maybe that was the point. Some rides aren't meant to be long. Just true. Before leaving, Grim took something from his vest pocket, the small photo Danica had given him. Him in the hospital bed. Brando curled up beside him. Across the back, her handwriting still read, "Sometimes loyalty is the best medicine." He tucked the photo between the flowers at the crash site, anchored it under a small stone. "You were right, Doc," he murmured. "It heals more than wounds. It heals the way a man sees the world." Then he stood there a moment longer, eyes wet but unashamed. The wind tugged gently at his jacket, almost like a nudge from the universe. Time to ride. He kicked the Harley alive again, the rumble steady and familiar. Brando jumped back into the sidecar, tail thumping like a drumbeat. They rolled back onto the asphalt, heading toward nowhere in particular. As miles unspooled beneath the tires, memories blended with motion. Danica's trembling hands turning steady. Diesel's laughter in the hospital hall. Miles saying, "Death's on probation." Every voice became part of the wind, whispering through his helmet. They passed small towns and open fields. Children pointed and waved. Drivers honked in recognition. Every so often, someone would shout, "Hey, that's the dog." And Grim would grin, slowing just enough for Brando to enjoy the cheers. He realized then that fame hadn't followed him. It had followed Brando, and he liked it that way. Near dusk, they pulled into a ridge overlooking the valley. From there, the world stretched wide and endless, miles of open highway glowing gold under a dying sun. Grim parked, engine ticking softly as it cooled. He pulled off his helmet, hair catching the breeze. Brando jumped out, bounding toward the edge, barking at nothing but the joy of existing. Grim followed, sitting cross-legged on the grass. He opened a flask, nothing heavy, just water, and poured a little onto the ground. "For the road," he said. "For the ones who didn't make it. And for the ones who pulled me through." He looked at Brando, who now lay beside him, panting happily. "You did good, boy. Save me once. But what you really did," he smiled. "You made me live right after." The wind rose, lifting the edges of his jacket. Below them, a convoy of riders appeared far off, their headlights glowing like stars falling earthward. Grim stood, watching him snake along the highway. You see that, Brando? That's the future. Brothers riding in peace for once. Brando barked twice, as if counting blessings. As twilight deepened, Grim swung back onto his Harley. The sky bled orange into violet. The first stars flickered awake. He checked the mirror one last time, the valley fading behind, the open road ahead. Brando settled in, nose on the rim of the sidecar, eyes bright. Grim whispered, "We're not riding away this time, boy. We're riding towards something." He rolled the throttle gently, letting the machine ease into rhythm. Every mile was a heartbeat, every turn a prayer. They passed a weathered sign by the road. "Welcome back, outlaw." Someone had spray-painted beneath it, "Still here." Grim laughed, shaking his head. Guess word gets around. The wind roared louder, but beneath it he swore he heard another sound. The faint echo of his brothers somewhere on the horizon. And maybe, just maybe, the quiet gratitude of a nurse whispering a thank you into the night. He didn't need heaven. He'd already seen it in the loyalty of a dog, the forgiveness of a stranger, and the open stretch of road that never ends. "Still here," he said one last time. "Still riding." And with that, Ryder, Grim, Maddox, and Brando disappeared into the horizon. Two silhouettes chasing dawn, leaving behind a trail of mercy and thunder. Like this video, so the algorithm knows compassion still matters. Share it and subscribe, not just for the stories, but for the truth they carry. That no matter how dark the road gets, there's always a porch light somewhere, burning for you to find your way home. Now go on, hit that button. Also check out the 2 videos on the screen right now.